Alright, so we're in the shops and we were looking for something very specific. If I know where it, you know what, you don't have to search it for that long, it's right there. There we go. There's a bit of juicy meat right there. To be honest, we have quite a range, so I don't know which one I'm going for. Also, you know, I should just specify that it's not going to be a cooking channel, we're not changing anything. I just need it for a good reference. Specifically, this one. It's looking a bit dutty, but it'll work. Alright, so we're working with 2 packets today, and I might be thinking, like I said earlier, is this becoming a food channel? It's not. We're still doing photography and all that kind of stuff, but instead I kind of just needed a segue into today's video, and you know, raw chicken. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be talking to you about why you should be shooting in the raw format for your photos and not your JPEGs. So, you know, raw, it all makes sense. So first of all, I should really tell you what the raw format is. Basically, when you go to your camera settings, you will see a little section that says camera quality or something similar to that, and you'll see that it does say, give you some options. One says raw, it says JPEG, and then it might give you some other little signs like L for large, small, and all that kind of stuff. And basically what your camera is trying to tell you is how much information should I put into your pictures. Now raw is pretty much where you'll get your most highest quality picture, because it's going to have all your metadata in there, all that kind of stuff. There's no compression into it like you will do with a JPEG, and I'll tell you in a bit why you kind of want, well, I'll tell you the pros and cons for why you might want raw or why you might not want raw. But I'll give you a little bit of a hint of today's video. I would say that raw generally is the way to go. Honestly, the feel of raw chicken is vile. So I guess actually that does kind of count as our first pro, that if you do shoot in raw, you will be getting the highest quality image that your camera can put out. Now saying that, on the more negative side of that is the file size will be pretty big compared to something like a JPEG. Now for the JPEG, the file size will be much smaller, you know, per image. However, you won't get so much leeway and freedom with it when it comes to the editing process. And you know what, we'll just keep rolling with it. So our second pro for shooting in raw is that you have much more freedom with the post-processing side of things, because let's face it, you're a photographer, I'm a photographer, you will get times where sometimes you might be rushing about, you might have not taken too much time with a very specific shot, and you might be either a bit too overexposed, too underexposed, maybe your levels are off kind of, maybe there's just something wrong with the image that you're not happy with. When you are shooting raw, you will actually be able to fix most of it, and you know what, to a pretty good degree as well, because you're shooting in raw and you have all that metadata behind it. So in a really simple term, basically, you'll have your image that you're not too happy with, but you can fix a lot of it and keep the quality if you shoot in raw. Now to be honest, I am saying you should shoot in raw, but what I should be saying actually is shoot in raw when it's something important and necessary, because I'll admit there are times when I will be shooting in raw but I really don't need to, because the place I'm at doesn't really require it, because I know for a fact the images I'm shooting are not actually they're not going anywhere. If anything, they'll be on a hard drive somewhere, and the reason I took the images on that day was just to capture what we were doing on that day. It could have been a birthday or something, it could have just been maybe just a day out, so you know, I'm not going to edit these and send them off to anybody. So just think about if you really need to as well. But this video specifically is more about if you're doing this professionally and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, for your personal stuff you can do whatever you want. You can actually shoot in raw for your personal stuff as well. Nothing really wrong with that. But again, just think about, is it worth the time, the size? Because you've got to store them somewhere as well. You can't just keep the images on your camera all the time, because obviously you got another shoot tomorrow, next week, so you need to put them somewhere. And is it really worth having I don't know, maybe 5 gigs. Sometimes it can add up to that depending where you are and what you're shooting. You could have 5 gigs of raw images, and you might be thinking, well, I really didn't do that much today and it's not really that important. I'm not even sending these anywhere. So is it really worth having 5 gigs saved somewhere? So just think about it. All right, so the next point, which is definitely a pro, 100%, is, okay, so let's say that, you know, you've done your edits, you're happy with them, and then some time goes by, maybe so a week goes by, you look back at them and you think, you know what, something needs to change about this. I don't like I don't like the lighting in this. I don't like what I've done with this in this particular area. Whatever, let's just say you got something that is a bit off with the image. When you're shooting raw, you can actually go back to your file and then change things pretty much from that raw default area. So unlike JPEG where it will save and then, I mean, you could honestly, if you really wanted to, go back to the very first actual default image and edit it all over again, but I mean, that takes time. So what you want to do is shoot in raw, and that way you can actually just make those little adjustments that you want without actually going back and, you know, just redoing everything again, because I'll admit sometimes that gets pretty annoying and it's not something that you want to be doing. If, let's say, I know you got a wedding or something and you feel like, oh, I've got so much time to get the edit done, the deadline's coming up, you know, because also one thing you don't want to do is have a client and then pretty much tell them that, oh, we'll have it done, it's a bit too much there, we'll have it done by this date, and then you just keep pushing it back because you keep doing extra edits, keep doing more and more. No one likes that. So you want to be pretty time efficient, and you can do that when you're shooting raw. Now also on the con side of that, we were just talking about how you can be a bit more time efficient. However, I mean, this is technically a con because it's not good, but personally I feel like it's not that much of an issue, depending what you do. If you need to be really quick in the moment, it might be a bit of an issue, but generally most of the time it's not that much of an issue. So basically when you are shooting raw, like I said right at the beginning, what you're basically doing to your camera is you're telling it, I want to have as much information that it can give me. Now that obviously does come with a con, because your camera will actually process the image a little bit slower, not massively noticeable unless you really are on the go, which generally doesn't happen. I'm specifically thinking about weddings, but I mean other things as well. Let's say you do something that involves speed, maybe something with cars, I don't know, but you need that speed there. Shooting in raw will have its, you know, its benefits for that, because you want to get the most out of the image, but it takes a bit more time to process, and there might be a very slight chance that you might miss something important. I don't think it'll happen. I'm still saying I'm still a supporter of raw, but I'm just saying just be wary of that, because it's a potential thing that could happen. Alright, and as you can see, chicken is all done, looks all right. I mean, had to taste it a little bit just to make sure, you know, it was all cooked and, you know, none of it was raw, because you can't be giving out raw chicken and stuff. Got the chips done. I mean, you don't have to care about them. But yeah, the raw chicken is now cooked chicken. So, you know, let's give it a bit of a try. Now in this video, we were talking about why you should be shooting in your raw format instead of stuff like, you know, your JPEGs and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully I've convinced you that raw is the better way to go, even though there are some slight cons. And I would, you know, really emphasize the word slight, because they're barely cons when you consider what you're getting out of shooting with raw. I mean, really, you know, stuff like the higher quality that your camera should be giving you, things like you can go back and have more control over all the data that is in your image, stuff like more control over your your levels, your white balance, all that kind of stuff, just the color and everything. You just have a bit more control over everything, and it is one of those things where maybe you won't notice it in the moment, but when you get to that post-processing area, you know, when you're you've done all your images, now you're editing them, you really will thank yourself later on, because you know you did shoot in RAW and you have more control over everything. And also, you know, that is pretty good, to be honest. There's some good flavour in that. But anyway, I shouldn't put my mouth full. So, and also remember that sometimes you don't have to shoot in RAW. Things where, and it does happen sometimes, things where maybe it's just a small event where you're not going to edit the pictures and you will just maybe just save them just as a memory. You probably don't need to shoot for RAW for that, just because it's just added space that you won't really need on your hard drives, whatever. So just think about it. But anyway, you know what? This isn't all cold, so I might as well start eating. We have some chips. It's going to be pretty nice. Still got to do the thumbnail, which I've got an idea for it, but I mean, you've already seen it because you clicked on the video. But anyway, thank you for watching the video. Hope you like it. It's a weird one. You know, we did more cooking than anything, more than any shooting, but it's still pretty cool. And you know, I might take a bit more making chicken, maybe not chicken, some other stuff more often, and maybe just add it to the videos if I can segue it in. But anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you liked the video. If you did, please give it a like. If you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe, and I'll see you in next video.